Hello and welcome to episode of the Bubbs on Sports podcast. Today is Wednesday, May 24th. Hope everybody's having a day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Wednesday, May 24th here today. We've got a lot to get into here today on the program, talking a little baseball, we'll get into a little bit of hockey as well, as it is the middle of the week, halfway to the weekend. What a night last night for the New York Yankees. What a win for the New York Yankees as they get the job done 6-5 in extra innings. Aaron Judge with the game-tying home run in the bottom of the ninth, and Anthony Volpe with the game-winning walk-off sac fly in the bottom of the 10th to get the job done. It looked for a while there that this was going to be just a rough night at the ballpark for the Yankees, where they fall down 2-0 early, and then the Orioles add on, and they add on two more, and it was 4-0, and the Yankees weren't putting many runs together, and then all of a sudden you had a couple hits, Bader with a homer in the fourth, and then he came back in the fifth, and they put up three more runs. Like, all right, tie game, here we go. And then the Orioles put up one more in the sixth, and then the Yankees came back in the ninth and the 10th and put up two more and obviously got the job done. So a heck of a win last night. We'll get into it to start today. We'll get into all performances. We'll talk about Cole and what this win means, because this is a big-time win. We talked about going into this series, how big of a series this is for the New York Yankees, and to get a win like that last night was phenomenal and was big on so many levels. So we'll break that down here to start the show. Mets took a tough loss last night. They fall 7-2. And I'll tell you this, Kodai Senga again didn't pitch on 5 days rest, 4 days rest yesterday. They purposely pushed back his start to, I believe, today. Because he's not used to it. In Japan, they don't do that. They usually, it's longer rest in between outings and stuff. Eventually, he's going to have to pitch on every 5 days. Eventually, he's going to have to pitch in normal rest. You just can't keep doing this where he's pitching, in an inconsistent schedule. Just to thrust another pitcher in there, it showed last night as the Mets take a tough loss. And after such a great weekend, such a great, kind of week last week, getting the series win against Tampa, sweeping the Guardians, sweeping the doubleheader on Sunday night, getting the day off. You have 6 games against 2 teams that you should be able to beat, and you lose the first one against Chicago. And we know this Met team this year, not that Chicago's a horrible team. They're better than the Rockies. They're better than, some of these teams that the Mets have lost to already, like the Nationals. They're better than those teams. But they're still a team that's 5 games under 500. They went into last night 6 games under 500. Like, they're not this team that you should be losing to, especially after the weekend that they had. So Mets got to find a way to bounce back because, again, this is a big stretch here. You got to win these games. You got a tough stretch coming up against Toronto and then Pirates and, against Atlanta and then Pittsburgh. Like, you got to find a way to beat some of these teams that you should beat. Beat some of these struggling teams like the Cubs, which the Mets have had a really tough time with this season. So we'll see how it all plays out there the rest of the week for the New York Mets. But we'll get into the Yankees to start today. I also want to get into a little bit of hockey. We're going to talk a little Rangers as their coaching search continues as we currently sit here on May 24th. There hasn't been much, not coverage, but there hasn't been much development of head coaches out there for the New York Rangers in terms of narrowing down a list. I think we know that the Rangers have set candidates. I believe they may have talked to some, but this seems to be something that's definitely going to linger into June and linger here as the offseason rolls on, as they fired Gallant, a couple weeks prior. And I'll get into my, quick thoughts on Gallant or Gerard Gallant. I know that it's been a while. I know he's been fired for a while. I didn't do a podcast on it, obviously, with the schedule. So I'm going to give you my quick thoughts on him and in kind of where the Rangers need to go and what they need to get in their next head coach, because it's an interesting spot to be in, a year after getting to the Eastern Conference Finals and then playoffs back-to-back years, to fire your head coach, to then be in a situation where this head coach basically dictates where this franchise goes in the next 5 years. Because if he comes in here and this coach fails, you're looking at you're staring right at another rebuild after being right at the cusp of getting to the Stanley Cup. So it's a big hire. It's a big search. We'll get into it, talk about some of the updates and some of the potential candidates for the New York Rangers there later on. All right, so we'll start today with the Yankees. Also, Celtics over the Heat last night, so they do push that series to Game 5. So we have another day of conference finals. Florida goes for the series win tonight over Carolina. They go for the sweep. Vegas last night with the win. They go for the sweep tomorrow. So The conference finals streak of sweeps ends last night with the Boston Celtics beating the Heat. And I don't know if you heard it, but Jaylen Brown, I believe it was Marcus Smart, said, don't let us win one game. Well, the Heat did. We'll see if the Boston Celtics make some sort of miracle comeback. The crazy thing about falling down from 3-0, now you've got to win 3 straight. So it's like, got to still win 3 straight. They'll get Game 5 back at TD Garden, Game 6 back in Miami, and then if needed, they'll host the Game 7. But I don't think it's going to go much further than Game 5. Anyway, so we'll get into the Yankees here to start. So last night was awesome. What a win for the New York Yankees. They improved to 30-20 on the year. 5 games back now of the Rays, who took a loss last night. They are now only 2 games back of Baltimore, who falls to 31-17 on the year. Yankees are now 8-10, or 8-2 rather, in their last 10 games. They have now won 5 straight, dating back to the 3 against Cincinnati, the final game of the Blue Jays series, and then last night against the Orioles. And what a stretch the Yankees are currently on right now. Again, from just a couple weeks ago, really the month of April, where it wasn't good. It was ugly. And the Yankees currently own the best record in baseball right now in the month of May. They've been phenomenal, playing at a high level, playing the baseball that we all expected them to play going into the season, playing the baseball that you need them to play all year long. And that is what they did last night, where their bats come alive, they're hitting with runners in scoring position, they're getting rallies going, their bullpen holds it down, and they're getting the job done, and they're getting the job done against a really good Orioles team who, again, I know it's tough, and I mentioned this on Monday when I recapped the Red Series and then talked about this upcoming series. I know it's tough to wrap your head around the Orioles being really good, but they're phenomenal. And last night, to get the job done the way the Yankees got it done against Baltimore, where they got to their bullpen, Baltimore has one of the better back ends of their bullpen in the MLB with Cano, who got called up, in mid-April, has been great. One of the better relievers in all of baseball, to Felix Bautista, who has really, been that closer role and has been one of the better closers in all of baseball as well. To get hits off of those guys, to get a rally off of those guys was great. And it was a great win last night for the Yankees. And you now are up 10 games on 500. Really all the struggles are now in the rear view, because this team really is showing that the struggles early on were just caused by injuries. And they're beating good teams. 3 of 4 against Toronto. I know they split against Tampa, but still, they played a lot of good games. They were in all those games. If that's a 7-game series, that's probably going 7, right? You take 3 against Cincinnati, a team you should beat. And then last night, when you seemed like you were down and out of it, 4-0, there wasn't much going on in the early innings. They were hitting Cole. Cole was missing some of his spots, as he said in his press conference. Watching the game, you could tell it wasn't that he was just leaving balls over the plate. His stuff just wasn't moving quite to what he wanted it to, and it wasn't quite the Garrett Cole type stuff that we've seen from him this year. Which what we've seen from Garrett Cole this year has been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. But the Orioles put up 2 in the first. They add 1 more in the third, add 1 more in the fourth, and you're down 4-0. And, up to that point, Bradish was pitching solid, was doing his job. Again, wasn't, striking everybody out, but was doing his job, was getting out. The Yankees weren't hitting much. And then you go to that bottom of that fourth, and that's where things really got going. And again, we talk about how pivotal Bader has been this season for the New York Yankees. I mean, he starts the rally really in that 3rd inning, or that 4th inning, where he puts up the solo shot. They get a run on the board, and it's like, all right, 4-1. All you got to do is keep chipping away, and that's really that's really all you can do, is just keep chipping away. You're down 4-0. It's the 4th inning. You get a run in. All right, keep chipping away. You're down 3 now. Cole started to settle in really after that. He really started to settle in. He gave the Yankees some length. He got out of it, got him into the 6th. Ultimately, again, 4 runs, but the offense came alive there. You go to that bottom of that 5th, and that's where things really opened up. The Bader homer in the 4th gets the scoring started. You go to the bottom of the 5th, and that's where things really got going, where Rizzo has a double, Oswaldo scores, Glaber moved to 3rd on that play. You then got LeMahieu with a single. Bader then came up again, 2 RBIs in 2 innings. He hits a sac fly. Something that we've talked about a lot with this Yankee team. And there's still times where it shows. There's still nights where it shows, where they're too reliant on the home run ball. They're too reliant on a guy coming up there and hitting a 3-run shot and making it a 3-3 game and in a solo shot late to make it a 4-3 game in that game. Like, as much as the Yankees this year, we've seen a lot of times, and really just this Yankee team in general, they rely a lot on power. There's been a lot of situations this year. There's been a lot of games, and I know we've seen games too, even Sunday against Cincinnati, where they hit a lot of homers. There wasn't much getting guys on and driving them in. It was a lot of homers. Bader had a homer. Torres had a homer. Volpe obviously had the RBI double, and that was the scoring for the Yankees against Cincinnati on Sunday. So there's going to be those games where it's like 3 homers and gets the job done, and there's the next day where it's you lose 5-1 and it's 1 solo home run, 3 hits, and you lose. It's going to happen. But last night, the quality ABs, the continued hitting up and down the lineup, especially in that 5th inning where you get the Rizzo home or you get the Rizzo double, he continues to play at a high level. What a re-signing, what a signing acquisition Rizzo has been. I can't say that enough because I feel at times he doesn't get enough credit, Rizzo. And in last night, too, he had 2 excellent scoops at first base. Rizzo's been great. I mean, this is a guy that's batting over 300 on the year. He's having, statistically one of his best years of his career. What he does defensively, what he provides for the team, he is a mainstay in the lineup. When he's healthy, he's really solid. And I think some of his struggles down the stretch last year, again, were a lot caused by that back issue. And you go into the offseason, he gets it figured out, he gets it fixed, he comes here, he's healthy. He's been great. Rizzo's been great. You get the LeMahieu single. I always talk about this. As much as LeMahieu, goes through some slumps a little bit, and it wasn't quite the 364 or whatever he was in 2020, when he's up there, he's still one of the better hitters in all of baseball, pure hitters in all of baseball, when he's hot, when he's going. He got the single last night, and Bader drives in another run. Bader's been great providing the energy. Yeah, there's a lot to like right now with this lineup. There really is. There's a lot to like with this lineup. 4 runs in 2 innings to tie the game. You get it to 4-4. Orioles had 1 more in the 6th. Cole's final line was 5 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned, 3 walks, 2 Ks. He allowed 2 homers. The long ball hurt him. And that happens with Cole. Cole, the one thing with Cole is, and he started this year not allowing, his first couple starts, he didn't allow a homer. Recently, he's been allowing a little bit more of the long ball. Last night, he allowed 2 of them. His ERA on the year is still 2.53, and the bullpen got the job done. Ron Marinaccio came in, gave the Yankees 2 solid innings, 2 strikeouts. Wandy came in for an inning, got the job done, struck out 1. And then Michael King came in for 2 innings, the 9th and the 10th, and got the job done. He walked 1 at 3 Ks, got the job done, 31 pitches, 19 strikes, was efficient. And all in all, the bullpen again gives the Yankees, after Cole gives them 5, the bullpen gives them a solid 5 innings of work. 2 from Marinaccio, 1 from Wandy, 2 from King. Cole works into the 6th, couldn't get out of it, couldn't record an out. The Yankees bullpen does the job. And I mean, again, like this bullpen, and I've talked about this so much with all the injuries, all of the issues, all of just you go into the season and you're like, all right, Loaizaga. Clay Holmes, who's been shaky, you're like, okay, hopefully he can give you big outs. Tommy Kahnle, and I know he's on the way back, but, even a guy like, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name, Trevino, Lou Trevino, even him, another guy too, where he's out, right? A guy that was going to be kind of not a high leverage guy, but somebody that can come in and either he was kind of like the cleanup guy for the Yankees last year, where if a pitcher would be getting shelled, he would come in with 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, and find a way to get out of it, and then they would go to somebody else. But Trevino, another guy, like those are all the guys that you expected to get big outs this year. Instead, it's been, and last night was kind of the expected one. Marinaccio, Wandy's been great. I mean, his ERA this year is 1.83, and Michael King got hurt last year, healthy this year, 1.95 ERA. Marinaccio was solid, had those 2 games last 2 weeks ago, or about a week and a half ago. He had those 2 games where he got hit a little bit. ERA gone up a little bit, but other than that, he's been very good. 3.75 ERA on the year. And Marinaccio, after last season kind of just coming on, good spring training, kind of just caught on to the team just barely, has turned really into a high leverage guy. And his loss last year was felt in the postseason, not having him due to the shin injury. And again, another guy, too, that's, been able to stay healthy so far. But again, it's some other guys, too, like Cordero. Ian Hamilton, before getting hurt, has given the Yankees a lot of quality outs. It's some of these guys that you didn't fully expect coming into the year to make impacts that have made impacts. And the bullpen again last night against a very good Orioles team. I guess the best way to put it, the bullpen last night for the Yankees outpitched the bullpen for the Orioles. And the bullpen for the Orioles is one of the best in all baseball. Now, so is the Yankees ERA-wise. But, Yankees last night won the battle of the bullpens. Really, when you look at it, and when you look at the numbers and you look at what the Yankees were able to do. And a credit to Cole, too. Again, I'll get to Judge's homer here in a second, and all I got to say about that, because that was phenomenal. But Cole didn't have his best stuff, obviously. He was leaving a lot of stuff over the heart of the plate. He still gave the Yankees some length. It was 99 pitches. He still worked into the sixth. He stopped the bleeding there for a little bit. After the first, 3-4 innings of scoring, he gave them, a shutout fifth. Went out there in the sixth, allowed one run. But I know when you look at the stat line, it was 5 innings. But he got, the third and the fourth inning, he got, allowed one run each in those innings. But it wasn't like it was like a two runs in the first inning, 4 in the second, 3 more in the third. That's one thing with Cole is, if he's going to get hit, he'll allow 4 or 5 runs, but he always finds a way to give the Yankees some length. He's not a guy, again, other than the Boston Wild Card series, but, Cole's always going to find a way to give you some sort of length. He might let up 5 runs in the first inning. He'll give you 5 shutout innings and give you 6 innings. Yes, it's not a very good start, but he gives you length. Takes some stress off the bullpen. Where a lot of guys, they let up 3-4 runs in the first couple innings, they're out of there in 4, So Cole did give the Yankees some length last night. Now, you go to the later innings. You go to the bottom of the ninth. Aaron Judge is just, he's the best player in baseball. You can see I got my captain shirt on. Shout out to Roto Wear. Awesome shirt. You have 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth. Judge comes up, 1 out, bottom of the ninth, because Torres, I believe it was 1 out, whatever. You get Judge up, bottom of the ninth. Felix Bautista, who's one of the better closers, one of the better relievers in all of baseball. When you look at, his numbers this season, he has an ERA of 1.50. He's got 11 saves on the year, 48 strikeouts, has been great. And he was great last year in his first season in the league in 65 appearances. And again this year, it's been great in 23 appearances, 3-1 record with an ERA below 2 and 11 saves on the year, which has to be up there atop all of MLB. And, Judge just takes his pitch, just launches it. A shot to left field, no doubt about it. And what Judge continues to do is just simply remarkable. This is a guy, gets the extension in the off, or gets the, re-signs in the offseason. The Yankees bring him back. Hal Steinbrenner with the call from Italy at 3 a.m. to get Judge back as a Yankee. They name him captain. And, what he's done this year has not disappointed. He's been Aaron Judge. It's simply just remarkable. You sit there and you're just speechless watching this guy do what he does. You really are. Because every time he comes up big. And I know, there's a lot of fans out there for a while there that were kind of questioning how clutch he was, if he was able to come up in big spots. And Aaron Judge has proved all those people that he is. He's clutch. This is a guy that countless times over the past, year or two has come up in big spots and come up big in those big spots. And last night, it happened again. Hitting a homer off of one of the better closers in all of baseball when it seemed like not that the Yankees were down and out, but they needed a rally, they needed a big hit, and he provided that. And the ball was smoked. The ball was killed. He's the captain. He's played like the captain. He's the best player on the planet. There's no debate. There's no debate anymore. Aaron Judge is the best player in baseball. There's no debate. He is. He's the best player in baseball. He's the most valuable player in baseball. You take Judge out of this lineup, I've said it so many times. We've all said it so many times. Remember, people, sometimes people lose the meaning of most valuable. You take Judge out of this lineup, this Yankee team is going to struggle. You put Judge in this lineup, last night happens. You come back, you put up 4 over 2 innings, you go to the bottom of the ninth, you're down 1, he gives you that run, you go to the bottom of the 10th, and Anthony Volpe, who's living out a dream right now, hits the sacrifice fly. Rizzo picks him up. Really cool photo out there of it. Gets the on-field press conference, or gets the on-field interview. Gets the the Gatorade dumped on him. I mean, 22 years old Volpe is, grew up wanting to be the shortstop for the New York Yankees, and him and Judge now. Anthony Volpe with Aaron Judge, a guy that, 2-3 years ago in high school at Del Barton was probably watching Judge rake in the MLB, is now his teammate and is now going back-to-back innings with big hits with Judge. Judge with the homer in the 9th, Volpe with the sac fly in the 10th, and the Yankees complete a comeback in which early on there wasn't much offense, down 4-0. It was like Garrett Cole doesn't have his best stuff. This is going to be a long night, and you come back 6-5, Yankees win. Bullpen was great. Aaron Judge with a huge homer. Best player in baseball, period. There is no debate. Aaron Judge is, and Volpe with the sac fly that brought IKF home. And the Yankees get game 1 of a massive series against a very good Baltimore Orioles team, one of the best in all of baseball. So today you'll get Nestor on the mound versus Tyler Wells. Nestor coming off a solid outing, looking to continue that lower that ERA. Tyler Wells has been very good this year. ERA of 2.94, a whip of way below 1. So he's given the Orioles a lot to like this year. And then tomorrow you got Clark Schmidt versus Kyle Gibson. Gibson's been a solid pickup for them. Schmidt, we all know how he is. He's been shaky. He did have a solid outing his last time out. I believe it was his last time out against Cincy. Yes, it was. When David Bell, the Reds manager, got ejected for thinking that he had sticky stuff or whatever in his glove. But he looked good. I feel like Clark Schmidt, maybe this is just me, I feel like Clark Schmidt is always pitching the final games of these series. He always is. Like against the Blue Jays, I think it was a couple weeks ago, he pitched the final game of the series. It was the final game. It was the rubber game of a 3-game set against the Rays 2 weeks ago. Final game of the 4-game set against Tampa, you throw Clark Schmidt out there. And then now again, final game of this 3-game set, whether or not it is the rubber game or not, hopefully it's not. Hopefully the Yankees are going for the sweep in that final game, but Clark Schmidt's back out there. I feel like Clark Schmidt this year has always been out there in the final game of these series, whether it's the rubber game, whether they're going for the sweep. It always seems to be the rubber game. It always seems to be the game where it depends on whoever wins the series. But you'll get Clark Schmidt on there Thursday, and then you welcome the Padres, as I mentioned, to town, who got the win last night against the Nationals. 4 games under 500. They're still struggling. You get 3 games against them, and then you head out west for 6 games, which should be awesome because you get 3 against Seattle, and then you head to L.A. and play the Dodgers, and that will be on Sunday Night Baseball. Then the week after that, you'll get another Sunday Night Baseball game against the Red Sox. So a lot of exciting matchups coming up here for the Yankees, and last night's win was great. And you look to do that again today, and you'll hope Nestor continues to build on some of these starts. Again, I think, the Yankees last night, they started to tee off a little bit on Bradish as the game went on. I mean, at the end of, after the game, Bradish, to finish the game, had 5 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 4 earned, 3 walks, 3 Ks. He allowed a homer, and his ERA now goes up to 4.34 on the year. So they did start to hit Bradish. Again, I think if you can get to the starting pitcher early today, especially a guy like Wells who's been very good, and if you let him lock in, it's going to be tough. Guy's had a very good season so far, has a 3.13 ERA in the month of May, had a 2.79 ERA in the month of April, in the first month of the season. So Wells has been great. And another one of these young guys that the Orioles have had now on the roster for a couple years and has really been a big factor for them. His rookie year, if you remember, he was a reliever for the Orioles. He mainly came out of the bullpen. Last year, he started 23 games, had an ERA above 4, just north of 4, but was solid. And then today, we'll get another look at him. ERA now below 3. So, and that's a lot with these Orioles. I mean, the Orioles have successfully executed a rebuild. You look at their roster, you look at their team, a lot of these guys, they're young. They're not always the biggest names either. Like Tyler Wells isn't one of the bigger name pitchers. It's not like they went out and brought in all these big name guys, but a lot of these young guys have now developed, and they've now turned into the players that they hoped and expected them to turn into. So the Yankees will get another look at him today and go for the series win and then sweep tomorrow. You get a series sweep against Baltimore with the Rays losing a little bit. The Yankees are right back in the division. Again, they're only 5 games out. Only 5 games out of the division. 30-20. The Rays are 35-15, and the Orioles are 31-17. They're 3 games out. And again, with the big win last night against the Orioles, you start to, gain some ground on them as well. A lot to like from this Yankee team right now as they continue to get healthier. Now, one thing last night that I'll take away, I don't quite know what they were trying to do, and we'll get to the Rangers here in a second. I don't really know what the Yankees were trying to do with LeMahieu bunting, with Glaber on third, an opportunity to score, and LeMahieu bunted, and then they get Glaber went home on the bunt, and then they got Glaber out, and it was the end. Like, I didn't quite understand the point of that. I didn't understand why the Yankees did that. I don't know. Boone said that in his press conference that LeMahieu decided to bunt on his own, and obviously Boone being Boone, said I'd have no problem with it, but it didn't make much sense to bunt in a situation where you have a runner on third. The game is at that point the game was, they were down 1. I don't quite understand the point of bunting there, and Michael Kay actually mentioned it on the broadcast. Like, if the Yankees went on to lose last night's game, if it wasn't for Aaron Judge and Anthony Volpe getting the job done in big spots, obviously, as I've already talked about today, but that would have probably been a play that would have gotten a whole lot more coverage, and I'm glad it's not getting a lot of coverage because obviously the Yankees got the win, but it was just a very questionable play. I don't know if, it wasn't a good bunt. I don't know if, LeMahieu thought he could get a better bunt down and then it would get towards home. I don't know quite what they were trying to do, but especially when LeMahieu earlier in the game had an RBI single to drive in a run in that 5th inning that the Yankees put up 3 runs total with the Rizzo double and the Bader sac fly added on in that inning. With LeMahieu doing what he can do, a guy that can step up with runners on and, find gaps and find holes and get runners in, I didn't quite understand that. If it was LeMahieu's decision, it wasn't a good decision. If it was, I don't know. Obviously it was. I don't think Boone would lie about telling LeMahieu to bunt and then going to the press conference saying, oh, yeah, that was LeMahieu's decision. So I don't quite understand it. I mean, it didn't work out. I don't see how it would have worked out. You're bunting, and then you got a guy coming home. You bunted it right back to the pitcher, or right in front of home plate. I forget if the pitcher or catcher grabbed it, and he got Torres out. Like, it just didn't line up. It didn't make sense. So I don't know quite what that was, but I guess hopefully that doesn't happen again. Obviously it didn't work, so hopefully it doesn't happen again, but that was definitely one of the more questionable, one of the more head-scratching things I saw from, really took away. That was the only negative I took away from the game yesterday. The only negative. I mean, even, again, like Cole, he was solid. I mean, he wasn't good. He wasn't himself, but he gave the Yankees some length, and it wasn't like he was terrible, Again, the Orioles are a good team. Like, the Orioles are, I know it's hard, but the Orioles are a good team, and they're gonna hit your pitchers. That's what happens. You're gonna have to score a lot of runs to beat the Orioles. I mean, they're a team this year that's, has a run differential of plus 40. They put up 245 runs this year. They've been one of the better offenses in baseball. They're a very good team, and they're one of the better teams in baseball for a reason. So that's why last night was a heck of a win for the Yankees. All right, so now I move on from the Yankees here, and we get to the Rangers. So obviously they fired Gallant, a couple weeks ago. It's been about 3 weeks now, really, since they got eliminated by the Devils in the first round. Devils ended up going on to lose to Carolina in the second round. Carolina now is on the brink of being swept by the Panthers in the conference finals. And you got Vegas, who crushed Dallas last night 4-0. They're right on the brink as well from getting to the conference finals. So most likely, after a lot of people wanted a Panthers-Dallas Stars series, most people, you're going to get a Panthers-Vegas Golden Knights series, and Vegas will get back to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since their inaugural season, where Gerard Gallant took them to the Stanley Cup final, and they obviously ended up losing to the Washington Capitals and Alex Ovechkin and that team back a couple years prior. So, eventually, after all, you go into the postseason, and you have the Rangers in it, you have the Islanders in it, you have the Devils in it. They all lose. Rangers lose in the first round. Islanders lose in the first round to Carolina. Devils lose in the second round to Carolina. It turned out to be a pretty unsuccessful postseason with 3 New York, New Jersey hockey teams in the playoffs and not one of them getting to the conference finals. It was pretty unsuccessful. And for the Rangers, it was a huge fail because you go to the deadline, and you add Tarasenko and you add Patrick Kane. Those were the two notable main big signings. You obviously added a guy like a Tyler Montu that provided some physicality. You added Nico Mikkola, in the Tarasenko deal, who was solid. At first got off to a rocky start, but got better as his time went on as a New York Ranger and turned out to be one of the better defensemen for the Rangers heading into the postseason. And all those moves, again, when you look at the Rangers, when you looked at their top six, when you look at their goal scoring, when you look at their forwards and their power, their star power, you had Mika, you had Chris Kreider, you had Tarasenko, you had Patrick Kane, you had Panarin. You add those guys and, Adam Fox, you add him into the mix. Like, you add all that talent, and to lose in 7 games to a Devils team that was much more inexperienced, first time in the playoffs in 5 years, a team that, yes, they're fast, yes, they're quick, but you assume kind of the star power of the New York Rangers, the goal-scoring ability of the New York Rangers would have taken over. And after games 1 and games 2, where the Rangers had complete control of the Devils, they win game 1 by a commanding score of 5-1. They come back in game 2 and do the exact same thing, outscore the Devils 10-2 in the first 2 games. They get swept at the Garden. They go back to Prudential, lose game 5. They win game 6, back at the Garden 5-2. And then obviously game 7, they laid a complete dud. And to be honest with you again, look, the goal this year for the Rangers, it was really, you had to at least get to the Stanley Cup. I mean, if you got to the conference finals and maybe if you lost to Florida, let's say, who's just a buzzsaw right now. I mean, they're on a magical run. They're a buzzsaw. Nobody in the NHL, nobody in America saw the Florida Panthers getting to the conference finals. This was a team middle of the year that was one of the bottom teams in the league. They were failing. They were not. They were bad. They kind of stand pat at the deadline because they really had it didn't look like they had much of a chance at the playoffs. They were out of the playoff picture for a while. They got hot, the final month and a half of the season. They get into the playoffs, just barely get into the postseason. They beat the Bruins, who were coming off an historic year. They obviously, now they're 1 game away from the Stanley Cup. They beat a Toronto team that, on paper, had a lot more talent. They make Toronto fire their GM in Dubois, and now they're in a situation where they're 1 game away from getting to the Stanley Cup final. Florida, it's a magical run. So maybe they would have ran into the buzzsaw of the Florida Panthers. I don't know, but the fact that they lost in the first round, me as a Ranger fan, I kind of knew there was going to be a change coming. It's always surprising, though, anytime a head coach that makes the postseason 2 years in a row gets fired. It's always going to be a little surprising. Gallant gets fired. Look, there's a little bit to blame on Gallant. There's a lot to blame on the players. I mean, Panarin was horrendous in the series, as you all know. Kane looked like Kane couldn't move. Patrick Kane could not move. That guy was so slow. And I don't know if it was, again, he was playing hurt, but I don't know if the Devils were just that fast and it made Patrick Kane look slow, or if the Rangers were just that slow and the Devils were just fast. I mean, the Devils were fast, and their speed took over in the series, and it was awful. And to lose Game 7 the way they lost it, where they came out lifeless, lost 4-0, were pathetic on so many levels. To lose that game was just bad. You can't do that. So now you go into an offseason where you fire Gallant. Gallant doesn't have control over Patrick Kane not being able to move. Like, Panarin was awful. Adam Fox's turnover in Game 7 was one of the worst plays I've ever seen in hockey. That was probably the worst 10-second sequence I've seen in hockey out of all my years of watching. Like, that was probably the worst. And Adam Fox has been great. He's another Norris finalist. He's been great. I'm not trying to blame the series on Adam Fox, but Adam Fox, that sequence in Game 7 where they turned the puck over, he then fell, got up, lost his man, and his man scored a goal. That was awful. Can Gallant control that? Not really. Now, can Gallant control, can he control some of the adjustments? He wasn't able to make many adjustments. We saw the Devils make an adjustment. I mean, I know Akira Schmid struggled in the second round series, and I know that the Devils are right back where they kind of started last year where, I'm not saying that they're going to be a playoff team again, and the Devils are going to be very good for a very long time, and the Rangers are going to have to match the Devils' speed. They're going to have to match the Devils' energy. But when you look at the Rangers and when you look at the Devils, they got to go find another goaltender because Schmid wasn't good in the second round series. But Lindy Ruff made an adjustment right there, benching Vitek Vanacek. He made some adjustments to the line. They found, to the lines. They found a way to get a goalie or found a way to get a win in Game 3, and that win propelled them the rest of the series. They win Game 4, win Game 5, win Game 7. They go on and move on. So, again, some of the adjustments, maybe you could, blame Gallant, but at the end of the day, Gallant gave the Rangers, they were top of the league the last 2 years in points, in record. He got them to the playoffs in 2 years in a row. He took a team last year to the playoffs that not many people expected was even going to go that far. I mean, the Rangers last year got through a veteran Pittsburgh team, got through a very good Carolina team, and they were up 2-0 on Tampa, and then they lost in 6. That Game 3 game I will always go back to. They were up 2-0. They took a bad penalty. Lightning scored on the power play, and that power play goal shifted the momentum of that entire series. Tampa came back and won that series. They won Game 3. They won Game 4, won Game 5, won Game 6. The season was over. Tampa lost to Colorado, obviously, in the Cup final last year. But you take a team to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. You come into this season again. And, again, I look at this, and there's a lot of blame, too, to put on Chris Drury. Chris Drury was the one that went out and added Patrick Kane. He was the one that went out and brought in Tarasenko, who was good, but he was the guy that went out at the deadline and made all these deadline acquisitions. Instead of adding speed and physicality, he added goal scoring and stars who have won cups and have experience. That's what he took. And it showed in the first round series where the Devils were faster, they were more energized, they were actually more physical. They played a whole lot better than we did. And a lot of that's on Drury. He was the one that built the roster. Some of the adjustments, again, is on Gallant. A lot of it's on the players for underperforming. It seems like they fired Gallant because of, what the players had to say in exit meetings. I don't know how true that is. I mean, Jacob Trouba got asked in his exit meeting about, about the whole, about Gallant and what he thinks of him. And he basically said, he's fine. The players respect him. Like, he wasn't a very convincing answer. I don't know if it was the players giving up, but I don't know what it was. Either way, the Rangers are now staring at a head coach vacancy where it's massive. This is one of the most pivotal head coaching hires that the Rangers have made in a long time. And again, the Rangers have a history of kind of giving guys a short leash. They just do. And now they're in another situation where it seems like every 2-3 years the Rangers are trying to find a head coach. And it's not because that head coach stinks. It's because, the Rangers just have high standards. I mean, again, I don't know if Dolan got involved in this and said, hey, Gallant, get out of here. You didn't win a championship. I don't know. I don't know what all went down here. Definitely there are some aspects that you can understand. There's also some parts of it that you don't quite understand. At the end of the day, when you go out the trade deadline, you add all the pieces that you added. When you lose the first round series, when you blow the first round series like you did after winning the first 2 games, I don't know. I guess that's what happens. You fire the coach. Either way, this is a massive hiring process now for the Rangers because you're in a situation where you have a lot of free agents on your roster. You got to do a lot of maneuvering. You got to figure out what you're going to do, especially with the salary cap, because the Rangers just barely were able to get in the salary cap last year to be able to bring in guys like Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. Now that didn't work out, I say this, and I'll continue to say this. I would rather a Ranger team like they had in 2022, like they had a year ago, where they're still playing, and where they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was guys like Andrew Kopp, guys like Frankie Vetrano that were getting the job done. Tyler Mott, obviously, as well, playing a role. Those scrappy guys, those guys that bring some speed, bring some physicality, bring some energy, instead of all just putting all the top goal scorers in hockey on one team and hoping it works. And the Rangers got to figure this out because, again, similar to they did with Henrik Lundqvist, they're wasting Igor Shesterkin's best years of his career. They are. I mean, this is back-to-back years where Igor Shesterkin was the top goalie in hockey, and you don't get to the Cup once. We've seen this with Henrik. He got to the Cup once against the Kings, and the Rangers got smoked. He had no help in front of him. They couldn't score. They couldn't defend, all that stuff. They got outplayed in the postseason. We're seeing this again here with the Rangers. You got to get a coach that's going to come in here and be able to make adjustments. He's got to have experience, somebody that's been able to finish. One thing I will say about Gallant, throughout his career, he's never been able to finish. Through his time in Florida to Vegas, where he got to the Stanley Cup final, lost that first year, took over after they lost in the Stanley Cup final, and was never able to get him back, was never able to finish in Vegas, was never able to make those adjustments. You got to get a coach that's going to make adjustments, got to get a coach that has experience. Mike Babcock's a name that's been brought up. He was in Anaheim. He was the coach in Anaheim. They won the Cup in 2003. He's a veteran. He's got experience. Again, you also have to have a guy that's going to be able to handle the pressure, because you're going to come into a situation where you have to win a Stanley Cup. That's really what it is. Anything less at this point is a failure. You went into a rebuild. You came out of the rebuild. The rebuild was pretty successful. It took about 2-3 seasons, and you saw progression each year. From the day they sent the letter to the fans to where they are now. And now you're in a situation where, just making the playoffs, last year was cool. You made the playoffs, all that stuff. This year was the harsh reality of now you got to go win a cup. And next year, again, you got to go win a cup. So you're going to have to get a guy that's going to come into New York, the media. He's going to have to handle the pressure. Chris Knobloch's a guy that's one of the brighter young minds in all of hockey. Is with the Rangers in the AHL, their farm system with the Wolfpack. He's been brought up before. David Quinn had COVID during the COVID season, was in COVID protocol. Chris Knobloch got caught up to sit behind the bench for about 2 games. The Rangers actually won one of those games against the Flyers, like 9-0. That was one of the crazy games that they scored a ton of goals against. So you got that. He's an option. Now, the one thing I will say about Knobloch, he's a bright mind. He's got a future in this league. The one thing, he lacks the experience at the NHL level, and is he going to be able to come into this situation, the bright lights of New York, the media, the pressure as a first-time head coach, and take a team to the Stanley Cup? That's high. Those are high standards. Those are very high standards. Is he going to be able to do that? That's the biggest question. Is he going to be able to handle the pressure? You're talking about a first-time head coach coming into a situation where he has to win a championship in New York. That is about one of the hardest tests you can give somebody possible in sports. Tell a head coach to come in and win a championship with a New York team with the pressure. So can he handle that? I don't know. Again, he's had a lot of success down in the farm system. He's very smart. Again, many consider him one of the brightest minds in hockey in terms of, he's young too. And again, I don't know if the Rangers want to go that route, bring in a guy that, is in their system, already knows the organization. Who knows? Peter Laviolette is another option too with the Capitals. I would not bring him. He did not have much success with Washington after taking over for Barry Trotz. I wouldn't bring him. Again, he's a veteran. He has experience, but in Washington, you saw it ended this year where they have to enter into a rebuild now. I would not do that. Joe Quenneville from Chicago has had a lot of success, won the Cups in Chicago. He's got a lot of off-the-field issues. So I know the NHL has granted him permission to come back and seek a job, and he's allowed to do interviews with the media, New York, bright lights. It just might be too much off the ice for him to handle. That's how I see it. Jay Leach, another guy now with the Kraken, first 2 seasons. Could he be an option? It's tough, how the Rangers go. Again, and that's what you kind of question with this firing. There's not one name out there that you look at and it's like, man, this guy's really good. There's a couple of them. There's definitely a couple names that you look at and say, all right, these guys they're veterans. There's definitely some guys with some success, but there's not that one name. It's not like the Rangers fired Gallant to go hire one of the best hockey coaches in hockey that somehow got fired. You get what I'm saying? So, again, that's where Gallant was fine. He wasn't bad. He was fine. They fire him, and now you've got to bring in a coach that, when you look at all these other coaches, what are they going to do much better than Gallant? That's the big question. Like, is Chris Knobloch, again, young mind, but is he going to be able to handle the pressure and really bring you over the top? Mike Babcock's an experience, has had success, but, I mean, is he going to be able to bring you over the top? Right? Again, winning a Stanley Cup's hard. It felt like more of the issues with the Rangers stemmed from their overall roster construction than it actually did the head coach. Bringing in guys that were slow and out of their prime instead of speed and physicality. So I don't know. When the coach, whoever the new coach is, a couple things they've got to do again. They've got to improve They've got to improve 5-on-5. The Rangers, especially in the playoffs, do not score on 5-on-5. You can't wait to the power play and then try and score. And we saw that in this postseason. They had struggle after games 1 and 2. They had struggles on the power play. They couldn't score on the power play. And that's terrible. Like, you got to, they couldn't score on the power play, and it showed. They couldn't score goals because they couldn't score 5-on-5. You've got to score 5-on-5. You got to make in-game adjustments. I guess if that's your one knock on Gerard Gallant, that would be it. He wasn't able to really make those in-game adjustments, especially in Game 7 where they were clearly getting outplayed, and he kind of waited until the second and third period when it was too late. You also got to get, another guy, too, whatever happens with Capocaco and Lafreniere with their contracts and their futures, you got to develop the youth. You got to develop the young guys. The Rangers haven't done a great job of developing these young players. Somebody that can come in here and do that. Chris Knobloch probably could, but could he do everything else? That's the question. I like Knobloch a lot. I do. Out of all the names on this list, he's the one that you obviously know the most because he's with the Rangers and you hear about the most and you have the most knowledge on, but the pressure, like asking a guy to come in, hey, first-time NHL head coach, we're going to put you in New York City, we're going to put you with the Rangers, an original 6 franchise, this media, this pressure, and you got to win a Stanley Cup. That's a lot. That is a lot on a young coach like Knobloch. It is. And would he handle it? I feel like that is, I feel like what Chris Knobloch is, it's kind of boom or bust. There's going to be no in between. He's either going to come in here and he's going to be young coach, provide, kind of a young way of doing things, the way he thinks, his mind, his hockey smart, he's going to come in here and just be awesome, right? And the Rangers have their coach for a while. Or he's going to come in here and he's just going to turn into a dumpster fire. That's the risk you take with Chris Knobloch is boom or bust. Like, he either comes in here and he's amazing or he comes in here and he's awful. There's no in between. That's how I feel with him. So I wouldn't mind bringing him in. Again, Henrik Lundqvist, he's not coaching, okay? Mark Messier, he's not coaching. Those guys aren't coming here. I know a lot of people out there, myself included, for the first day, wondered if those guys would come in, but they're not. So, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, what the Rangers do, it's a big hire because you got to win. You got to win something here. You got to win something eventually. And we'll see. We'll see how the Rangers go. One thing's for certain, though, they've got to get more speed. They've got to get faster. And that's not so much the coach. That's just the front office. They've got to bring in guys with speed. You can't bring in all these slow guys and expect to beat the Devils because the Devils are going to be in it for a very long time. And watching that game 7, the Rangers coming off the ice, Chris Drury figuring out what he wants to do in the offseason, that Game 7 should be kind of a reminder that's what you've got to be. That's what you've got to get to. That's a team that you're going to have to beat. You're going to have to beat the Devils for the next, however many years the Rangers are in it and the Devils are in it. The Devils are going to be in it every year. That's just, they were successful this season. They've completed a rebuild. They're going to be in it. They're going to be in the conversation every season. You've got to find a way to beat that team. You've got to find a way to match that team's physicality. Not so much physicality, but you've got to find a way to match that team's speed. You've got to. You got to play fast. They've got to add guys with speed. Got to add guys that, can go more north and south than east and west. The Rangers play too much, east and west hockey where they're trying to these cross ice passes that only work, 2-3 times out of 10. And when they work, it's great because you get a 2-on-1 man advantage, and it's like, oh great, we scored a goal, awesome. But when things aren't going well, when the ice is tight, when the ice is shorter, when you don't have as much room, when, the other team's playing, really solid defense and your other team's fast and, everything's quicker and shorter and, faster, those east-west passes are a whole lot harder. The Devils play a north and south game, and it showed. They go up and down the ice. They're gonna get man advantages off forcing turnovers in the neutral zone and getting in transition and getting 3-on-2s and 2-on-1. And we saw that all series long. The Rangers have got to match that. Can a head coach do that, or is it more the GM? We'll find out. But definitely a big offseason here for the Rangers after getting demolished against the Devils after games 2. Games 1 and 2, I should say. All right, so tonight we'll close things out here. We got the Yankees and the Orioles tonight, as I mentioned. 7:05 game tonight is on Amazon Prime. So, again, as I mentioned yesterday, like 3 of the Yankees to start the week, I saw that like 3 of the Yankees' next 5 games were on streaming services. You've got Prime tonight, and then you got Apple TV Plus tomorrow. You had Peacock on Sunday. So you got all these different streaming services coming up here for the Yankees. As I mentioned, Tyler Wells tonight, 3-1 with a 2.94 ERA, and Nestor Cortez tonight with who's 4-2 with a 5.21 ERA for the Yankees. All right, so now we move on. Mets, Cubs tonight. Mets 25-24, Cubs 21-26. Cubs with the win last night. Mets look to split, even up the series before the final game of the 3-game set tomorrow. Kodai Senga will take the mound. He's 4-2 with a 3.77 ERA. Marcus Stroman will go for the Cubs. He's 3-4 with a 3.05 ERA, 7:40 Eastern. I believe you can find this on SNY and all that stuff and MLB Network as well. The Kodai Senga looks to build off of that 12K outing he had the last time out. Stroman's had a very nice season, so he will look to win the series for the Cubs and go for the series sweep tomorrow for the Cubs against the Mets, and the Mets will head to the Rockies for 3. And we'll see. Something about the Mets and playing bad teams. They can't beat the bad teams. They're able to beat the Rays. They're able to beat the Guardians. 2 teams, Guardians aren't a great team, but 2 teams that are solid, a lot better than the Rockies and the Cubs. And they're not able to beat them. I mean, I don't even know. Guardians actually might not even be better than the Cubs, but the Rays are. And they still struggle against these bad teams. So, anyway, that will do it for the podcast here today. Lot discussed. Yankees and the Rangers. And, that'll do it. I'll see you all back here tomorrow. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.